Markets soaring today with all three major indices now up double digits off the December lows, and that's giving new life to a number of once left for dead stocks. Let's get to our very own Dom Chu in the newsroom with more. Hey, Dom.
Well, Melissa, stocks were roaring to the upside today as the bulls look to take that S&P 500 back above its 200-day moving average. It traded above that longer-term trend line for the first time since December 4th. And, of course, it's been a staggering upside run for stocks ever since those Christmas Eve lows. But some of the biggest beneficiaries of the run have been the stocks that got hit the hardest in 2018. For example, let's take a stock like Schlumberger in oil services. The shares fell by 46% or so in 2018. They're up around 22% or so far in 2019. United Rentals lost 40% last year, but up around 28% this year. Similar story here with casino giant Wynn Resorts, a 41% drop last year, turning into a 28% gain year to date. General Electric also falls into that boat. It lost 57% last year. It's rebounding by about 32% this year. And then there's Mattel. Thanks in part to a better than expected earnings report, shares have surged by 68% or thereabouts year to date after falling 35% last year. Now, Melissa, these are just some samples of that believe the bounce trade. So will traders still be singing "Don't Stop Believin'" or have these run their course for the time being? Back over to you guys.
All right, Dom, thank you. Dom Chu back in the newsroom.
A little journey, a little Steve Perry. Sure.
Like your favorite group, right?
I mean, I wouldn't say that, Mel, but I appreciate you asking.
That was your ringtone.
They're fun in karaoke.
That's his ringtone.
Don't stop believing. I thought that was Tim's ring. All right, we thought it'd be a perfect time to play another round of
Trade It or Fade It.
That's right. Trade it or fade it. So let's kick things off with Mattel, down 35% last year, up a whopping 65% this year. So trade it or fade it. Tim Seymour, this was a 2017 Power Lunch stock draft pick of yours.
So
the
therefore,
timing was a little
the
off.
song "Don't Stop Believing" really would apply to this one, and I kind of still believe. Some of this is, it's not of a good investor is they let their winners run and they don't let their losers run. And in fact, this is one that arguably I've let run too far. I have an average price. I'm in jail on this one, probably somewhere south of $20. But the turnaround is very impressive for a company where expectations were so low. Gross margin close to 40%. Hey, Barbie is back. North of 10% in terms of sales growth. Hot Wheels is back. So, I think the worst of the story from Mattel in terms of the bankruptcy of Toys R Us, et cetera, is behind it.
So forgetting what you paid for it, which is, I think, totally irrelevant.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, trade it.
Supposed to say that first. Tim.
Yeah.
So you came to it today with fresh eyes. You had no history of owning the stock. Everything you say is true, even though it's bounced a lot. From right here. It seems like the story's very much intact.
And because I've spent so much time sitting to your right or TV left, I believe what you think, which is I need to want to own this tomorrow, fresh today, to stay in this trade. And I do, because the bottom line is we've now had reaffirmation that a turnaround in management, a turnaround story is alive and well, and that the expectations this company is going out of business, I think, were way overstated. New movie releases are important. They have a technology play, and I think it's not terribly expensive.
Wait. Karen, are you unclear on the rules of trade? Have you forgot? The trade it is
trade it means buy. Right, right. No. I'm saying
it's a confusing game.
He sounded like a little lukewarm because it's run a lot. Maybe do I fade it? Then he did say trade it.
Right.
But I just wanted
didn't
to
say
clarify.
anything for a long time.
What did you say?
Apologies.
What did Karen say at this point?
I know I'm with him. I would
trade it. Yeah.
So I think the positioning is ultimately. I would fade it. I think the positioning is ultimately what created this bounce, but it's bounced twice now. So that stands to the positioning of it. So I do think you cannot buy something so overextended like this.
Let's move on to Wynn Resorts. Guy, trade it or fade it?
Well, a lot of Wynn's problems are self-induced, as we've talked about for now. Contessa Brewer's done a great job on the Wynn story. Stock went from 200 to 100, basically in a straight line over the previous 6 months. But here we are now, 125. Now, you would think, and I'm going to play the game correctly, given my views on the market, I would say fade it, but you would be wrong. I am going to say trade it. Pull the graphic, please. Ding, ding, ding.
Nice.
You say, well, what are you, nuts? And yes, is the short answer to that question. And Macau gaming revenue down 5% year over year last month. I get it. A lot of bad numbers. But valuation is pretty interesting. The stock is bouncing. And I think if you have any hint of a trade deal over the next couple of weeks, you'll see a continued rally in this name. So although I'm somewhat pessimistic broadly, I think the market in Wynn can at least continue to go higher.
I agree with his last statement, but I'm going to say fade it. I agree with his last statement that you're going to see the last pop on a trade deal. Any hint as you worded it, of a trade deal. You could see a pop. That's one to fade. It's already in the name. China trade is already there. Macau is already there. It could only be lackluster.
How was the Golden Week holiday, Tim? Not for you personally.
Well,
but
yeah, it's always an important time
holiday for him.
But it actually, early signs good.
Yeah.
I think that the China story has been so devastating for the entire space. I actually am a trade it player on this game.
Ooh.
Notice I said trade it.
All right, let's move on to Schlumberger in the energy space. Grasso, would you trade it or fade it?
I'm going to fade this one as well. So if you look at the chart on this one, it's
Is there
correlated
anything
to.
you like? You're like Mikey here.
We'll get there.
Like cereal.
We're going to get there. There's a couple of more names left.
All right.
It's correlated to oil. I think that they've already had their run. We're in an oversupplied state. I would be fading the entire space.
Karen?
I don't know. I mean, I get. So here's the thing about this game. We've had things down, let's say 40%.
Are you going to?
I'm going to trade it.
Okay. And then you're going to talk down the game.
Well,
Yeah, I
I'm going
think
to explain
disparaging
something
the game
about
at
the
this
market,
point
not
is
the
not very
game,
nice.
not
Okay,
the
all
game.
right, the market.
So we
Not
have a
very
stock
nice.
that goes down 40%, right? It's from 100 to 60,
Right.
and then it's up 30%. It's only back to 78, right? So just because we've seen these big percentage gains doesn't mean that the story, that it's played out. Also, these are companies with debt, so the enterprise value hasn't moved that much. Therefore, I'm still trading a lot of them. I trade it.
Well, I tell you what, I think the oil services space is one of the most fascinating out there because I've talked about how the short interest in the energy sector is at record highs. Services is actually under even more pressure. I like SLB. I like HAL here.
All right. United Rentals. This is definitely a Karen Finerman name. Trade it or fade it. We all know the answer, I think. But
Yes,
Karen?
the answer is trade it, right? So some people will point to this, it's had a big bounce. We just talked about how that big bounce isn't necessarily so big. People point to the debt here, not understanding really the way the company works. It is very asset heavy, right? But if you look at the multiple, you look at the cash flow here, it is so easily sustainable for that debt. In fact, they always have the problem, what do we do with all the cash? They buy back stock, they do acquisitions, they become bigger and bigger. And we talked in the last quarter about a secular shift of the idea of the sharing economy for big equipment. They're the master of that. I like it.
Is this Grosso's life cereal?
Did you say trade it?
Trade it, yeah.
What is
Yes.
that?
Maybe I did.
I don't know.
I think I started with
Yes.
that.
He likes it.
Yeah, this is a
because he
trade.
traded
This
everything.
is a trade for me as well.
You know, I know you don't care about this. First of all, Karen was saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. She was saying that's what the
Okay.
cool kids say. And you mentioned Life Cereal. This is just a more you know type thing.
Yes.
Mikey?
They were actually three brothers from Yonkers, New York, the Gilchrist brothers. Actual
brothers.
Rap guy.